day 3 here in Yokohama at the annual meeting of the Asian Development Bank. I'm here today joined by Paul Gruenwald, Managing Director and Chief Economist for Asia Pacific region of S&P Global. Paul, thanks for being with us today. One of the topics that have been discussed the most here during this day has been the demonetisation program announced by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in November. 5 months on, the government sustains that the program has barely affected economic growth, although the liquidity crunch has been that the people in India, people and businesses in India have experienced has been widely reported. What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, first of all, it was a surprise, and I don't think it was executed particularly well. So we saw a steep drop in activity around November. But the questions for us were, one, was the economy going to recover all the losses? And two, was the path of long-term growth going to be affected? It looks like most of the damage has been reversed. So if you look at the purchasing manager indices, some of the short-term indicators, it looks like we're almost back to November. And the structural reform agenda has been pretty good, right? They've got the GST, they have financial inclusion, they have investment reforms, etc. So for us, we're pretty comfortable sticking with our 7.5% growth forecast for India over the medium term. This has not been a great episode. Probably lots of books will be written about it, but we don't think the damage is permanent.
But do you think they're right when they say that this is already fostering growing fiscal revenues?
We're not quite all the way back. For us, it's not so much the fiscal on the macro side, it's investment. What's been missing from this Indian growth spurt has been investment. We have good urban consumption, a pickup in rural consumption, but we haven't seen the investment on the back of that yet. So for us to get our comfort level of balanced, strong growth path, we're going to need some help from investment. That'll flow into the fiscal revenue.
Another major topic of discussion here in Yokohama has been China, obviously. There seems to be a lot of optimism about the future of the development partner of China and future growth in China, but you got a slightly different view on that, correct?
Yeah, well, we're not in the hard landing camp, but the two senior Chinese officials I've seen this week have both said basically, China now is like South Korea in the 1970s, and they were growing by 7 or 8%. Therefore, we should be growing by 7 or 8%. No one's asking questions about excessive credit growth, non-performing loans in the banks, slow structural reform agenda. So we don't see any near-term danger for China, but we don't think the macro path is sustainable over the medium term. This year we have the Party Congress, so we don't expect anything dramatic to happen, but we're hoping to see a pickup in structural reform. In Xi Jinping's second term, we can sort of start to address some of these structural issues.
What would you think would be the number one priority in terms of structural reforms?
Well, they're doing a bit more to create some market and credit discipline in the economy. So the interbank rate has been rising, more volatile. They really have to start reforming the SOEs. They're low productivity, they're a drag on growth, but they're also very important for kind of political stability. They generate a lot of employment. So China's moving away from that investment model toward more of a consumption services model. We just need that to accelerate a bit in the second term of Xi Jinping.
Last but not least, Japan, the host country of this year's event. Again, there have been numerous seminars about aging society in Asia, particularly in Japan. And also it was very interesting yesterday to hear a Japanese official mentioning that the fiscal spending on healthcare in Japan equals the military spending of the US, Saudi Arabia, the UK combined. So from more of a credit rating perspective and debt sustainability perspective, Japan already has a 250% debt to GDP ratio, and with these demographics, are we getting any closer to an end game here?
Well, first of all, I can't talk about the rating. On the macro, Japan doesn't have a real problem. Japan has a nominal problem. They need to get inflation up. They need to get nominal GDP growth up to 3%. That's the macro medium-term objective. If we get the nominal growth up to 3%, then the revenue situation will look a little bit better. So that would be sort of a plus from the sustainability point of view. For Japan, it's important to remember two things. First of all, the debt is mostly domestic, so it's the left hand borrowing to the right hand. So when we consolidate that, it doesn't look so bad. And the other thing is Japan has the largest external asset pile in the world. So if Japan slips into a current account deficit situation and needs to borrow from the rest of the world, it actually has the external assets as a cushion. There's still work to do. We need to get inflation back up. Mr. Kuroda needs to get some more, I think, luck from the rest of the world. Faster growth, more trade, and a weaker yen. We've got partial victory, but we'll have to see if Japan can push through. The political situation looks good. Abe looks well ensconced, so we'll see if we can continue to get gradual success, but we're not ready to declare victory yet.
Okay, perfect. Paul, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thanks.
Thanks.